face then. Hello? Hello, good morning. It probably need a little less volume. A great photo of the project on online showing the project outline with the drill. The project is in Sonora, and so it's going to be a little competition between Sonora and Sinaloa, maybe for the dominance of projects in this conference. We've got next the usual beware of the forward-looking statements. The company is Sonoro Gold, and the company's been working in Sonora for probably 10 or 12 years with other projects. Excuse me. The people involved checked one of the boxes that's important with small cap companies is we've got 5 people with good experience levels, and probably total there's 200 years of experience in the listing here. I'm the geologist. We've got other people with a great deal of experience, John Darch and Ken McLeod, as well as Jorge Diaz, who helped with 3 projects that Chester Miller established in Mexico as open pit heap leach gold mines, and Oscar González, who's here with me and a co-author of the paper. So the location is in northwest Mexico, northern part of Sonora, and probably many of you have seen some of these illustrations before that we've just modified a bit. Our neighbors are also the Mercedes mine to the south, but nearby, south of the project, about 8-10 kilometers, and the Cerro Prieto about 3 kilometers to our west. Beyond that is the First Majestic, excuse me, Santa Elena, and the Chispas mine, also low sulfidation, epithermal gold, silver. We jump now to mineralization right away. This is the grade shell outline of gold mineralization. It's pretty obvious to see that there's a northwest orientation. The grade shells outline higher levels of mineralization with a more reddish color. There's 12, I think in this illustration, 12 named mineralized bodies, and overall on the property there's probably 40 different vein and previous historic mine type zones that were mined by principally Gambesino and very small mining. We'll be talking about several of these, but you can see a good deal of the resources located in the bottom half of the photo. All oxidized in the mineralized zones that are drilled. This shows kind of an inventory. We completed in March and published a new technical report that described the resources, and this was done by SRK. In the measured and indicated categories, there's 290,000 equivalent ounces, including silver, which adds about 3% to the total value of the deposit, and 150,000 ounces of inferred. This is defined by tight drilling and pit shells that have an economic control on the possible mineralization that could be mined. Also within the pit shells is at the bottom column is a potential for run-of-mine material that's lower than the now crusher grade of 0.2 and arbitrarily established 0.15, so there's 10 million tons with about 60,000 ounces in that category. it's got to be moved, blasted and moved anyway, so it's worth considering for run of mine. If the later in a PEA, if the crusher cutoff is moved up to 0.3, which it probably will, then that'll increase the run of mine material probably significantly. In addition to that, unclassified potential is the material that's outside the pit shells, but it's still dependent on drill holes with a given boundary. I don't know if it's 50 or 75 or 100 meters, but it's a resource that's established only by the distance around the drill holes that are too widely spread to be included in the pit shells. But that was given as a range, and I've put together here the midpoints of the range that was given, and it adds about 200,000 ounces to the total. So the grand total of all that is about 700,000 ounces. And it's a pretty good start because we've got a lot more to add to that. Okay, next. Next item to check for the quality of the project is the metallurgy. And 10 drill holes of PQ diameter were completed several years ago and put with McClellan Laboratories in Sparks, Nevada for testing. They started with bottle rolls. 43 bottle roll tests were completed, and the average of the bottle roll test was a little over 80% recovery. Then from the same material, 17 columns were established. 9 were done with half-inch crush, and the recoveries from that averaged 74% on gold and 26% silver. In addition, another 8 columns were done at 2-inch crush, and the recoveries there averaged 66% with a much lower silver recovery at 16%. And in addition, it's determined that there were very low toxic elements in the material, very low arsenic, antimony, no mercury, and the only element that's of somewhat elevated interest are 2 that are lead and zinc, but most places those aren't very high either. Also, a compressibility testing was done on all of the material put for the columns, and it was shown that stacking could be done over 100 meters of depth with no impact on the permeability that would be significant. So metallurgy, another box that's checked as being positive. The next slide is one that's kind of a lot of gray background, but it just points out the drill density that we've completed so far. In total, there's 55,340 through 37 meters of drilled in 500, roughly 500 drill holes. And this averages out to about 110 meters per drill hole. And they're all angled at 45, so that puts a depth of about 80 meters effectively being examined by the drill holes for the depth potential. It's probably why it's all oxidized. Of that Sonoro company, we've completed 42,330 meters of the drilling in 379 drill holes. And it's the basis for all of the resource. Right now, there's some additional work underway to add information between drill holes with trenching. And we think that that'll give us better detail for beginning some of the possible open pitting in the future. This slide is one that shows a feature that's pretty important because what it shows us that there's a window through a very large myelinite zone that appears to be laramide in age. It has in the hanging wall the Jurassic metasedimentary group, and in other places there's the Jurassic metasediments in the footwall too, but here it's showing up in the footwall mostly a dioritic to granodiorite complex that's in contact through the beneath the fault zone and partly involved in the myelinitic granulization. And on the southern side of the map, it's a myelinite zone that's 20 to 30 meters thick, with additional ground up and fractured material that gives it up to a 70-meter thickness. And it's very fractured, shattered in that zone, so we call it a shattered myelinite zone, and it's all mapped as one unit. It's very important in the mineralized area, which is in the center of the map, because it allows the permeation of the silicification outward from where the veins cross it. The veins are later, they do cross-cut it and provide a good deal of the fluids that make it such a good mineralized host. In the north side, it shows the contact with the in the area of the vein zone that's crossing called La Gloria. And in this area, the drilling very shallowly cuts into the basement rock from passing through the myelinite zone. So we have good mineralization at the surface, but we can't confirm it very well with the drilling because it's a very thin slab in that part. Okay. I'll also point out here, which I'll talk about in the next slide much more, but the PQP unit, which is a quartz porphyry unit, that's probably associated with the rhyolite dikes and sills, tends to form along the same zone because it was probably a good zone of weakness. Go to the next. Okay, with our northwest structure orientation highlighted here. The northwest structures are really the important feature of the whole mineralized zone. The northwest structures seem to have been developed along a in-series sequence of listric-type faults, and in a later section near the end of this presentation, we have the illustration showing how those are established. In the photo in the right side, we show some of the veins crossing that fill those structures. In the upper photo, the Cabeza Blanca, probably the top of the ridge there is also the PQP formation, or rhyolite unit, sitting on the top of the ridge that marks some of the shattered zone. In the bottom photo, it's the vein crossing of the Guadalupe vein in the El Colorado zone. The Cabeza Blanca vein continues south into the El Colorado zone and helps make up some of the mineralization in that part of the area. And we got to point or maybe point out the area of the El Colorado and the Cabeza Blanca, which is on the map here too. So, okay. Also of importance is the rhyolite dikes, which fill some of the fracture zones that are developed with a northwest trend as well. The veins follow them very, very faithfully and define most of those structures. But the dikes may have been a little bit earlier, and possibly from the dikes, there are developed a number of areas where sills are developed along the metasedimentary contacts, and those are pretty extensive in most locations. In the northern part of the map, the pinkish area is all the rhyolite unit, which is probably a sill and represents some significant exploration potential now as we've moved further along with the drilling and the recognition of these areas and features. The top of Cerro Caliche is in the area where the rhyolite dike lettering occurs. And that appears, at first we thought it was possibly a rhyolite dome structure or endogenous type dome, but it appears to be simply a sill as well. The veins do cross-cut the top of the mountain with good values in places, and remain to be targets. We've now got a road that goes to the top of the mountain, so we have access to be able to go in and do drilling in this area. The PQP unit that I mentioned before is a more reddish unit developed in the shatter zones, and it is always associated with mineralization as well. It's very strongly silicified wherever present, and usually around it the rock is strongly silicified as well. And the host for part of this is the lower unit of the Jurassic. It's a red quartzite, and it shatters in association with the development of the northwest structures. They sometimes have a sheeted type northwest fracturing that forms stockwork out to the sides of the veins. I'll show a few intercepts later, but we can get 20 to 30 meter intercepts that include the vein and the surrounding rock that are of very good grades. All the rock types on the property show fracturing and veining, and so the best age date is one from nearby at the Mercedes mine, which gives a 26.5 million year age on a lay-type porphyry, which is very similar to the rhyolite dike and sill unit here. So I think that's probably applicable to this. We have completed concentration of the zircons from all of the igneous rock types in the project, and we've got those ready to go for age dating as soon as budgets are available to do that. Okay, the next and probably final stage of the structural picture is the post mineral, and this is the basin forming structures that developed with northeast trends. They cut the veins, they cut the mineralization, cut the silicification, and probably are Miocene in age. And I think that we can assume that they are Miocene because it does host part of, in the farthest northwestern block there, which is shown in the photo of the fault that drops along, which is looking southerly in the photo. But it drops significantly downward the structures so that they basically disappear and probably are at depth. And there are just a few scattered epithermal quartz veins in the surface in the Jurassic, upper part of the Jurassic in that area. To the south, the Balcarite Formation is sitting in that block, as well as some interbedded with the Balcarite, which is probably the basal part of the Balcarite. Some tufaceous material that's probably related or comes from the Sierra Madre volcanic episode of around 22, 23 million years. So with that cross-cutting set of structures, we've got a pretty well defined block that contains most of the mineralization, or at least two blocks that contain most of the mineralization. There seems to be some rotation in some of the blocks. Okay, next. Okay, this is a close-up of the Cabeza Blanca and Guadalupe vein area. And as you can see from the patterning on the showing up in the upper right, that's the shatter zone, and the myonite that's shown on the other illustrations, and also the PQP that's developed in and around that. We go to the next spot next. Okay, this is really pretty typical of the vein structures throughout the zone, and we see in this one we picked it because it's showing some higher grade development. The Cabeza Blanca vein is a higher angle, and the Guadalupe vein to the left is a lower angle, and it appears to have more shearing developed in parts of the vein zone, but it also shows some higher grades in this particular location. I don't know if I can read. Okay. We see here that we get 22.86 meters of 1 grams, and it includes some 4.5 gram type material. Another one with 26 meters and 1.8 over 7.6 meters. So that's typical of the intercept widths. But over in the Guadalupe vein, we see some very high grades come in, and this is showing in the upper intercept 3 meters of 9 grams, 3.5 meters, 2.3, and 1.5 meter 0.5 grams, and I think we had 37 grams down here in the lower part, and 1.5 meters, 6 grams. So in the Guadalupe vein structure, which is passing through the top part of that column that's highlighted, is the main area of the structure. But in the footwall, we seem to be getting, and in the vein structure itself, higher grades in this particular location. And to the next section, to this about 500, 600 meters further south in the El Colorado, it gets much more complicated. We see the Guadalupe structure cutting through and becomes the most prominent part of the illustration, and we don't hit the Cabeza Blanca because it's cut out in that particular section. So next one. Okay, and we also see developing here some horizontal structures that could most likely seem to develop from a reverse fault movement maybe late in the stage of the structural development of this area. But it's opened up these features in a kind of a horizontal character, and they're blind. They don't have a surface expression that we can tell, because a lot of it probably is covered in there. There may be one or two that does intercept the surface, but in all of these high-grade sections, we think we're increasing the grade, but it doesn't come into affect the resource very much, because the resource statistical methods have cut it all down to about 3 grams, I think. So with some more drilling, and we'll probably have to add more core drilling to this to define it better, but it looks like there is a very high-grade area in here, and it's the resource has been defined by the pit boundary that's in the darker bluish outline. So that's the shell that was defined for the resource. It's SRK. Okay, next slide. And this is the fairly accurate cross-section through the whole project, and you see the kind of pink line that crosses through the entire area. That's the PQP unit, and it appears to have come out of for my opinion, out of the rhyolite dike structures. We showed 3 or 4 areas where rhyolite dikes were present in the property, but there are 2 or 3 more that are associated as well. So they do come up and cut the unit. Also, you see the more listric character of some of the faults. They also have quartz veins in them. The quartz veins indicate renewed activity over time, and they show a lot of brecciation. And at the same time, they do have veins and veinlets that show about 4 different stages of veining in the mineralized area. To the far west, you see the Graben structure, which is the latest structural unit that's cut all of the mineralization and taken down to the west. The rock maybe in the neighborhood of 500 to 800 meters, something of that nature. We don't know yet. Below the myelinite zone, it also appears that there is a plastically deformed character showing up about 200 to 300 meters below the myelinite zone. And where we've seen it, it seems to have also a parallel character to the myelinite zone. We don't know if it's related, and it may be that we don't have enough data points at this time, but that appears to be where a lot of the veins pinch, and some will follow for a little distance the plastic deformation zone. So it could be the base of the true epithermal part of the system. And the grade shells are shown above the structural section, so that we'll see when we drop it down how those are matching the structural interpretation here. We consider a lot of the area still prospective with good exploration potential. Within the circle is to the right is an area we'll be drilling in the next drilling phase that we know we're able to block out additional resource, and probably involves about another three to 4 structures that aren't well defined at this time. There also is potential to the west because we just haven't done much work down there. And we know now a lot better the setting for additional mineralization to occur in that area. There's a good number of structures and quartz veins in that area, and a lot of old-timer Gammasino type workings in that area as well. Okay. Next. Well, getting close to the end here, and probably time for the tequila discussions. But in the area, I want to point out that I think the low sulfidation epithermal mineralization has probably occurred in a rift zone setting that includes the northwest trending also, and include the Mercedes and Klondike and on down even to the southeast to through the Chispas and possibly the Santa Elena zones, all low sulfidation epithermal too. To the northwest, it abuts the and this inset map is from Norris defining metamorphic core complexes, but it abuts the core complex with age dates of ranging from 25 to 30, 33 million years. And it's sort of also in the age range of the mineralization. We don't know I don't know the real connection there, but but it was shown on the map that those dikes and the structures do cross that metamorphic complex. And like I say, that's food for thought, or maybe beer and tequila discussion later in the day. And for the next, that's the final slide, and this shows the Cerro Caliche mountain itself, and the top of the mountain is capped with this rhyolite sill, and it still has potential for mineralization in the higher parts of the mountain, and we'll be drilling that in the coming programs. Thank you very much, and want to say to Doug, it's a great honor to be here. 9th year, can't believe it's been that long, but it looks like a great conference set up to happen today and in coming days.